the word plague comes up, many of us think of the infamous Black Death, or what seems to be now far removed epidemics or pandemics of yesteryear. However, in the cyberpunk universe, plagues can occur more frequently, and it be quite devastating in terms of the deaths they can inflict on unsuspecting populations. In this video, we'll be looking at prominent biological plagues that help shape the geopolitics of cyberpunk, along with a few less known details about unnamed plagues or disease outbreaks that actually helped boost the influence of the megacorporations you see in Cyberpunk 2077. The 1990s were an incredibly tumultuous time for the entire world. It seemed like the diplomatic finesse of every national government or group of global powers completely broke down as countries started bulking up on military assets while isolating from one another, while internal politics and issues ensued for each one of them. The secret cabal that governed the former United States of America, comprised of the NSA, CIA, FBI, and the DEA, called the Gang of Four, would essentially not pay attention to the decaying infrastructure or the escalating issues within the borders of America. This inattention or ambivalence from the Gang of Four in favor of consolidating its own power while commencing proxy wars, economic espionage, and biological warfare with designer plagues targeting Chile, Ecuador, and Afghanistan would eventually lead to what we know as the collapse of America. Terrorist attacks, such as the detonation of a nuclear bomb at New York's Rockefeller Center, would also further destabilize America. An increase in riots, famine, acid rain as a result of corporate exploitation of the environment, and other disasters would strike America. The Earth, being a global economy at this time, meant that much of the world's consumption had also taken place in America. As a result of the instability, as trade and economic growth slowed as a result of the Gang of Four's manipulation, trade completely stopped in America. In 1994, some stock traders committed suicide when the World Stock Exchange and World Bank collapsed as embargoes and asset freezes flurried out from the European Economic Community and other governments in the world. Millions of Americans who lived on pensions and investments were hit first. Entire life savings evaporated. People became homeless or were forced to move in with relatives. By the end of 1994, the number of homeless individuals skyrocketed to 21 million. For the unlucky, inadequate healthcare and public services led to more than 60 million deaths by the year 2004. Right after these tragedies came another epidemiological disaster called the Wasting Plague in the year 1999. The already overtaxed medical systems had found themselves inundated by a series of plagues that swept the globe. Aided by easy and rapid transportation between countries, densely packed urban zones, and a willful tendency for the broken governments of this time period to ignore or downplay the effects of medical emergencies, these hotspots of infections spread across entire continents. The Wasting Plague was a horrible disease that apparently originated from Europe that attacked the intestines of its victims and made them starve to death no matter how much food they ate. Once the Wasting Plague hit the dilapidated United States, more and more people simply died. An estimated 14 million people died before a vaccine against the Wasting Plague was finally created in Japan. Outbreaks of cholera would also occur in many parts of the world, more than likely due to contaminated water sources and food supplies as a result of corruption and lack of regulatory oversight by either megacorporations or governments. Eventually, some megacorporations would realize their potential customer base getting sick or one of their target cities falling victim to plague would hurt their profit margins. Thus, entities like CityMed, sponsored by megacorporations such as Trauma Team, offered free, bare minimum healthcare services to local populations, only to prevent or control outbreaks of plague. Unsurprisingly, things just kept getting worse for the world as the AIDS, or Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome, pandemic of the 1990s escalated into a second devastating wave of AIDS as humanity entered into the 21st century. Stalling by politicians and academic infighting among researchers delayed a cure to AIDS for so long that the disease mutated to a more virulent form called AIDS 2. That's right, AIDS 2. During the first, second, third, and fourth corporate wars from 2000 to the 2020s, life expectancy would plummet while chances of plague outbreaks or plague weapons hitting civilian populations increased. For example, during the Fourth Corporate War, Arasaka Corporation and Militech tried to deny each other global shipping lanes by targeting strategic seaport hubs with engineered bioplagues. Hong Kong, Shanghai, Long Beach, and Busan would be targeted by these bioplagues. Busan lost its entire population of approximately 4 million people in United Korea as a result of these bioplagues, and the city is still quarantined by the year 2077, devoid of human life with only the automated machinery whirring to life in the dead city every day. In the 2020s, a mysterious nanotech plague called the Carbon Plague would strike in Night City after a corporate Aerodyne vehicle crashed on the outskirts of the city. Within 2 weeks, the Carbon Plague killed affected adults, while anyone under the age of 18 who were also infected did not die. It would turn out that the crashed AV held a weaponized nanovirus that would rewrite its victims' genetic codes, warping their bodies. However, with children and teenagers, the Carbon Plague only altered their bodies instead of killing them. These individuals, known as the Cyber-Evolved or Changed, would be immune carriers with nanotech-enhanced abilities. As a result of them being hunted down by Arasaka Corporation through their proxies in the US government, collectively known as the Eden Cabal, the Cyber-Evolved would eventually ally with the Edgerunners to fight back. By the year 2063, many biological diseases or plagues were seemingly contained or eliminated with the exception of bioterrorist attacks. Notably, on May 4th in the year 2063, the Avian Extermination Act was passed by the Night City Council. The act says the following: in the face of increasingly frequent and deadly zoonotic disease outbreaks, the Night City Council has decided that the most effective method for reducing the risk of infection among residents is via the extermination of all avian life within 18 miles of city limits. The extermination process would begin on May 7th, 2063, once the call and selection of tenders for the contract have been completed. Presumably, this is why birds aren't seen in Cyberpunk 2077. But there's also a suspicious lack of other animals as well. This is because 2 years before the Avian Extermination Act in 2061, roughly 12,000 people died due to animal-borne plagues. This also explains why if you really want to own a pet in Night City, you have to pay a large tax for one due to the city's fear of zoonotic disease outbreaks. If you enjoyed this lore video, definitely check out the other ones I have on Cyberpunk, Starfield, Armored Core 6, and more. And definitely subscribe to the channel if you want more of this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay Nova Chooms.